السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أبنائي وبناتي طلبة وطالبات الصف الثالث الإعدادي، معكم مستر أحمد الفتى من مدرسة محمد مكاوي يعقوب للغات بمحافظة أسوان. هنبدأ النهاردة الفيديو بتاع النهاردة ده هنعمل ريفيجن فيه على يونت 1 في منهج نيو هالو في مادة اللغة الإنجليزية الصف الثالث الإعدادي. نبدأ مع بعض ريفيجن على يونت 1. ناخد أول حاجة السؤال بتاع situations. Write what you would say in each of the following situations. Write what you would say in each of the following situations. السؤال بتاع situations بتاع المواقف هنا. Number 1. You advise your brother not to walk in the middle of the street. You advise your brother not to walk in the middle of the street. يعني انت بتنصح اخوك انه ما يمشيش فين في منتصف الشارع. طبعا ده سؤال جه في القاهرة وفي السويس سنة في امتحان بتاع 2019. نشوف كده الإجابة بتاعته. situation You shouldn't walk in the middle of the street. طبعا استخدم هنا shouldn't plus infinitive. يبقى أنا عندي هنا إيه shouldn't نستخدم إيه shouldn't plus infinitive. أهو ناخد إيه استخدمنا هنا shouldn't وبعديها الانفينيتيف اللي هو ايه الانفينيتيف walk. You shouldn't walk in the street. You shouldn't walk in the street. أو You had better not walk in the street. You had better نفس الكلام You had better not walk in the street. بعدين عندي هنا You had better نجيب بعديها infinitive. هنا في النيجاتيف حطيت not plus infinitive. You had better not walk in the street. ممكن نستخدم حاجات تانية نقول ايه I advise you not to walk in the street. I advise you not to walk in the street. شوف اللي بعديها You are in a busy street with your younger brother. You advise him not to walk too close to the road. You are in a busy street. يعني انت في شارع زحمة with your younger brother. You advise him احنا بننصحه not to walk too close to the road ان هو ما يمشيش قريب من الشارع. شوف هنا كده You shouldn't plus infinitive طبعا يبقى you shouldn't walk too close. You shouldn't walk too close to the road. هنا to المفروض تبقى بالدبل او. You shouldn't walk too close to the road. يبقى هنا المفروض تبقى ايه بالدبل او. You shouldn't walk too close to the road. بعد كده ممكن ايه تاني I advise you not to walk too close to the road. I advise you not to walk too close to the road. You see people throw rubbish in the street. Giving advice. You see people انت يعني بتشوف الناس throw rubbish بترمي القمامة in the street. Giving advice ادي النصيحة. ضد النصيحة بقى You shouldn't throw rubbish in the street. You shouldn't throw rubbish in the street. أو I advise you not to throw rubbish in the street. I advise you not to throw rubbish in the street. Number 4. A friend asks you to go to the club this weekend. You would love to go. A friend asks you. asks هنا معنى يطلب يعني a friend صديق بيطلب منك to go to the club انك تروح النادي this weekend. You would love to go. وانت عجبك الفكرة يعني. It is a good idea. I'd love to go. أو it's a great idea. I'd love to go. You ask your friend to recommend you a place to buy souvenirs. You ask your friend انت بتطلب من صديقك to recommend you a place ان هو يرشح لك مكان to buy souvenirs. انت بتسأل هنا بقى what's the best place to buy souvenirs. What is the best place to buy souvenirs? أو where do you recommend I buy souvenirs? Where do you recommend I buy souvenirs? Number 6, you want your friend to go with you to the Egyptian Museum on Friday. You want your friend to go with you to the Egyptian Museum on Friday. انت عايز صديقك يروح معاك المتحف المصري يوم الجمعة on Friday. I suggest you go to the Egyptian Museum with me on Friday. I suggest يعني اقترح. I suggest you go to the Egyptian Museum with me on Friday. أو what about going to the Egyptian Museum on Friday? What about دي بعدها verb ing هنا الاقتراح طبعا. What about going to the Egyptian Museum on Friday? هنا عندي what about اهي what about جبت بعدها verb ing الاقتراح. طيب your brother wants to go outside. It's raining. Your brother wants to go outside. It's raining. يبقى هندي نصيحة هنا. You shouldn't go outside. You shouldn't go outside. It's raining. أو I advise you not to go outside. I advise you not to go outside. Advise your friend who are entering a story writing competition. Advise your friends طبعا. Advise your friends who are entering a story writing competition. يعني انصح أصدقائك هنا المفروض friends تبقى دي. هم داخلين مسابقة في كتابة القصة. هندي نصيحة هنا. يبقى you must remember that grammar rules are important. You must remember that grammar rules are important. ده حل من ضمن ال suggested answers يعني. أو don't forget that grammar rules are important. Don't forget that grammar rules are important. Advise your sister who is about to go outside during the rain. Advise your sister who is about to بمعنى على وشك يعني to go outside انها تخرج يعني during or during the rain في اثناء المطر. ندي نصيحة يعني we want to advise someone who is about to go outside during the rain. You shouldn't go outside during the rain. I advise you not to go outside, it's raining. I advise you not to go outside, it's raining. Number 10, your friend wants to get high marks and asks for your advice. Your friend wants to get high marks and asks for your advice. يعني صديقك عايز يجيب درجات عالية وبيطلب منك النصيحة. You should study hard. You should study hard. Oh, I advise you to study hard. Your younger brother starts eating his meal without washing his hands. Your younger brother starts eating his meal without washing his hands. يعني your younger brother أخوك الصغير starts بدأ eating his meal بدأ يأكل الوجبة بتاعته without washing his hands بدون ما يغسل ايده. يبقى هندي نصيحة هندي advice على طول. يبقى you should wash your hands before eating. You should wash your hands before eating. أو my advice to you is to wash your hands before eating. My advice to you is to wash your hands before eating. Your friend asks you where to go on the mid-year holiday. Recommend a place. Your friend صديقك asks you بيسألك where to go أين يذهب on the mid-year holiday في أجازة نص السنة. Recommend a place رشح له مكان. نبدأ نرشح له مكان. Recommend a place. I recommend كده جبت بعديها verb ing going to the zoo. I recommend going to the zoo. أو I recommend you go to the zoo. I recommend you go to the zoo. Number 10, your sister wants to know how to keep fit. Number 10, again, your sister wants to know how to keep fit. Your sister wants to know. يعني أختك عايزة تعرف how to keep fit. إزاي تكون في لياقة بدنية عالية. ندي نصيحة برضو هندي advice. You should do sports. أو I advise you to eat healthy food. I advise you to eat healthy food. Number 11, recommend a nice place for your pen friend to visit in Egypt. Your pen friend recommend a nice place for your friend, your pen friend, to visit in Egypt. I recommend visiting Aswan. I recommend visiting Aswan. Or I recommend you visit Aswan. A tourist wants to buy a guidebook. Recommend a place. A tourist wants to buy a guidebook. Recommend a place. يعني في سائح عايز يشتري a guidebook. recommend رشح له المكان اللي يقدر يشتري منه الكتاب ده، الكتاب الإرشادي ده. يبقى I recommend going to the tourist information center. I recommend going to the tourist information center. أو I recommend you go to the tourist information center. I recommend you go to the فيها غلطة هنا. Go to the نشيل الهي دي، طبعا الهي دي المفروض نشيلها. Go to the tourist information center. Your friend asks you to recommend a place to go on Friday. Your friend asks you to recommend a place to go on Friday. I recommend going to the pyramids. I recommend you go to the pyramids. I recommend you go to the pyramids. The pyramids. Your friend wants to look at the sun. Advise him. يعني صديقك عايز ايه؟ ينظر للشمس. Advise him. انصحه. يبقى you shouldn't look at the sun directly. You shouldn't look at the sun directly. Or I advise you not to look at the sun directly. You want to go on a picnic. Make a suggestion. You want to go on a picnic. انت عايز تعمل رحلة أو نزهة. Make suggestion. اعمل اقتراح. I suggest going on a picnic. I suggest going on a picnic. How about going on a picnic? You advise your brother not to walk too close to the busy road. You advise your brother not to walk too close to the busy road. You shouldn't walk too close to the busy road. I advise you not to walk too close to the busy road. Your friend or brother spends too much time watching TV. Your friend or brother spends too much time watching TV. يعني أخوك أو صديقك بيقضي وقت كبير في مشاهدة التلفزيون. Advise him. انصحه. You shouldn't spend too much time watching too much TV. You shouldn't spend too much time watching too much TV. أو I advise you not to spend too much time watching too much TV. You advise your younger sister not to watch too much television. You advise your younger sister not to watch too much television. You shouldn't watch too much TV. Or I advise you not to watch too much TV. You ask your friend about the best way to revise before the exam. You ask your friend about the best way to revise before the exam. What is the best way to revise before the exam? What is the best way to revise before the exam? Your younger brother wants to look at the sun. Advise him. You shouldn't look at the sun. You had better not look at the sun. You see your friend who doesn't study his lessons. You advise him not to waste his time. You see your friend who doesn't study his lessons. You advise him not to waste his time. You shouldn't waste your time. Or I advise you not to waste your time. I advise you not to waste your time. بعد كده تمرين choose the correct answer. Choose the correct answer. Number 1. The youth space is less expensive than the hotel. The youth office, station, hostel, bazaar. Of course, the youth hostel is less expensive than the hotel. The students usually stay in a youth space when they visit the city. The students usually stay in a youth hostel. The students usually stay in a youth hostel when they visit the city. Number 3. It's cold and windy when you go outside. You space a coat. في نصيحة برضه هنا. You should wear a coat. You should wear a coat. It's cold and windy. When you go outside, you should wear a coat. Many tourists use a space to learn about a city's history and places to visit. Of course, the correct answer is a guidebook. Many tourists use a guidebook to learn about a city history, and places to visit. Tourists should wear sun cream when it's very hot. Number 5, you walk too much in the sun. You shouldn't walk too much in the sun. You shouldn't walk too much in the sun. Many tourists use a to learn about a city's history and places to visit. A guidebook. A guidebook. When tourists want to know something about the country they are visiting, they are visiting the Tourist Information Center. When tourists want to know something about the country they are visiting, the Tourist Information Center. The restaurant in the guidebook was a very good recommendation. The restaurant in the guidebook was a very good recommendation. You too much in the sun. You shouldn't walk too much in the sun. A space is a good place to buy souvenirs. A bazaar, of course, a bazaar is a good place to buy souvenirs. Tourists usually go shopping from the of Khan al-Khalili. Bazaars. Tourists usually go shopping from the bazaars of Khan al-Khalili. Number 12, space are good places to buy souvenirs. Bazaars, of course. Bazaars are good places to buy souvenirs. Number 13, Ismailia has a cheap youth hostel where young people can stay. Space is a sport you can do in water. Windsurfing. Windsurfing is a space you can do in water. Number 15, space is an underwater activity. Snorkeling. Snorkeling is an underwater activity. Number 16, windsurfing is a sport you can do on the water. Windsurfing is a sport you can do in water. 17, I don't know how to get to the club. Can you give me directions? I don't know how to get to the club. Can you give me directions? Number 18, in order to visit another country, in order to visit another country, you must get a passport. You must get a passport. In order to visit another country, you must get a passport. If you don't know how to find a building, you can ask for directions. If you don't know how to find a building, you can ask for directions. Number 20, it is cold today. When you go outside, you should wear a coat. It's cold today. When you go outside, you should wear a coat. شوف بعد كده rewrite. Number 1, when you go to Luxor, I think you should visit the museum. عايزين هنا نستخدم ايه؟ recommend. يبقى when you go to Luxor, I recommend جبت بعديها verb ing اللي هو ايه؟ visiting the museum. أو when you go to Luxor, I recommend جبت بعديها جملة subject plus infinitive. subject اللي هو you، فاعل اللي هو you، بعد كده الانفينيتيف. يبقى when you go to Luxor, I recommend you visit the museum. I advise you not to walk too much in the sun. عايزين نستخدم ايه؟ shouldn't. You shouldn't بعديها infinitive. You shouldn't walk too much in the sun. I advise you to visit Aswan. عايزين should نستخدم ايه؟ should. يبقى you should visit Aswan. You should plus infinitive. You should visit Aswan. I advise you to study hard for the final exam. Number 4, I advise you to study hard for the final exam. You should study hard for the final exam. I advise you to carry your passport with you when you're traveling. I advise you to carry your passport. في غلطة هنا. Your passport with you when you're traveling. Should. يبقى you should carry your passport when you're traveling. I advise you to visit Luxor. Should. You should visit Luxor. You should visit Luxor. I advise you to wear heavy clothes because it's very cold outside. You should wear heavy clothes because it's very cold outside.